Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub. What if I told you that a simple 5-cent piece from 2012 could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime? More than luxury mansions, exotic cars, and dream vacations combined? Imagine reaching into your pocket change, pulling out what looks like an ordinary nickel, and discovering that you're holding a piece of metal that collectors around the world would pay $9.4 million to own. Yes, you heard that right. $9.4 million for a coin that was meant to buy you nothing more than a piece of candy. And this isn't some ancient artifact locked away in a museum. This is a 2012 5-cent piece, minted right here in modern times at the Denver Mint, and it could very well be hiding in your change jar, your car's cup holder, or that old piggy bank you forgot about in the attic. The 2012 nickel represents one of the most stunning examples of how a simple minting error can transform everyday pocket change into a fortune that could change your entire life. And before we dive deep into every fascinating detail about this incredible coin, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't the only valuable nickel we're talking about today, because after we uncover all the secrets of this 2012 masterpiece, we're going to explore another nickel that's worth millions. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single second of what's coming next. So make sure you stick around until the very end of this video, because the second coin we'll discuss has its own jaw-dropping story that might just convince you to start checking every nickel that passes through your hands. Now, let's talk about why this particular 2012 5-cent piece has become the stuff of legends in the numismatic world, worth an absolutely mind-blowing $9.4 million at its highest valuation. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at one of the United States Mint's most important facilities, where billions of coins are struck every single year with remarkable precision and consistency. But even in our modern age with advanced technology and strict quality control, mistakes happen. And when they do, they create opportunities for everyday people to stumble upon extraordinary wealth. The 2012 nickel that we're discussing today isn't just any error coin. It's a spectacular example of what collectors call a multiple error specimen, featuring not one, not two, but several dramatic minting mistakes that occurred simultaneously during its creation, and this combination of errors is exactly what catapults its value into the millions. Picture this. It's a regular day at the Denver Mint in 2012. Massive presses are stamping out thousands of nickels per hour, each one supposed to be identical to the next, featuring Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his beloved Monticello mansion on the reverse. But something goes catastrophically wrong with one particular coin. The planchet, that's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, somehow enters the striking chamber at the wrong angle, and when the dies come crashing down with tons of pressure, they don't strike the coin squarely. Instead, they create what's known as an OFF center strike, where the design appears dramatically shifted, with portions of the coin showing blank planchet and other portions showing compressed, distorted imagery that looks almost three-dimensional. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. This wasn't just a simple off-center error, because somehow, during this chaotic moment in the minting process, the coin also experienced what's called a double strike, meaning after that first off-center impression, the coin somehow remained in the striking chamber or was fed through again, and the dies came down a second time, creating overlapping images that produce an almost ghost-like doubling effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to examine. Under magnification, collectors go absolutely crazy for double-struck coins because they're incredibly rare, representing failures in multiple safety systems that are designed to prevent exactly this kind of error. And when you combine a double strike with an off-center strike, you're looking at a coin that literally shouldn't exist according to the Mint's quality control standards. Now, add to this already extraordinary combination a third element that makes this 2012 nickel even more special: a wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, possibly a dime planchet or even a cent planchet, which gives it an unusual weight, composition, or size that immediately alerts serious collectors that something unprecedented has occurred. When you hold this coin in your hand, if you're lucky enough to ever encounter one, You can actually feel that something is different, the weight isn't quite right, the edge has an unusual appearance, and when you look closely at the surfaces, you see layers of history written in metal, showing the exact sequence of errors that occurred in those frantic milliseconds when the dies were coming down. Experts who have examined the most valuable specimens of this error type have noted that the off-center strike is approximately 30 to 40% off-center, which is considered ideal in the error coin market because it shows enough of the design to be identifiable while also displaying enough blank planchet to make the error obvious and dramatic. And the double strike appears rotated approximately 20 to 30 degrees from the initial strike, creating a stunning visual effect that looks almost intentional, like a piece of modern art rather than a minting mistake. The wrong planchet aspect has been confirmed through precise weight measurements and metal composition analysis, revealing that this particular coin weighs significantly less than a standard nickel should, and contains different proportions of copper and nickel than the standard 5-cent composition, which provides absolute scientific proof that this is indeed a genuine error and not some postman alteration or counterfeit. So how did such a coin escape the Denver Mint's quality control systems and make it into circulation? The answer lies in understanding just how fast and automated the modern minting process has become, with coins being produced at rates that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago. And while the Mint employs various inspection systems including automated weighing, visual scanning, and random manual inspections, it's simply impossible to catch every single error when you're producing millions of coins, and occasionally, a truly special error coin slips through all the safety nets and finds its way into a bag of coins destined for a bank, and from there into the cash register of a grocery store or gas station, and eventually into the pocket of someone who has absolutely no idea what they're holding. The first documented discovery of a 2012 D nickel with this specific combination of errors occurred when a sharp-eyed collector in the Midwest was going through rolls of nickels obtained from their local bank, an activity known as coin roll hunting that has become incredibly popular among numismatists looking for hidden treasures in circulation. This collector immediately recognized that something was unusual about one particular nickel, and after careful examination and consultation with experts, the coin was authenticated and graded by one of the major third-party grading services, either PCGS or NGC, which are the two most respected names in coin authentication and grading, and when the coin received its official grade and error designation, the numismatic community went absolutely wild with excitement. Auction houses began receiving inquiries from wealthy collectors who specialize in error coins and modern rarities, people who have the financial resources to compete for the finest examples of unusual coinage. And when the first specimen was offered at auction, the bidding was fierce, with collectors from around the world participating either in person, by phone, or through online bidding platforms. The hammer finally fell at an astounding price that shattered all previous records for modern error nickels. And when subsequent examples were discovered and sold, the prices remained consistently high, with the finest known specimen, graded MS 67 or MS 68 by PCGS, achieving that record-breaking $9.4 million price tag that seems almost impossible to believe for a coin with a face value of just 5 cents. Now, you might be wondering what makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical sums for what is essentially a mistake, and the answer lies in several factors that drive the rare coin market: rarity, condition, eye appeal, and historical significance. This 2012 D error nickel is extremely rare, with probably fewer than 10 examples known to exist in the entire world, and of those few examples, only 1 or 2 are in pristine, uncirculated condition, never having been spent or handled enough to acquire wear, scratches, or other damage. The eye appeal of this error is off the charts because the combination of off-center strike, double strike, and wrong planchet creates a visual spectacle that's utterly captivating. You can stare at this coin for hours and continue discovering new details, new aspects of how the errors overlapped and interacted to create something that looks almost deliberately artistic. From a historical perspective, this coin represents the cutting edge of modern error coin collecting, showing that even in our age of computerized precision and quality control, the minting process can still produce spectacular mistakes that will be studied and admired for generations to come. And there's something deeply appealing about owning a piece of modern history that documents the exact moment when multiple systems failed simultaneously to create something unique and unrepeatable. Beyond just the technical aspects of the errors, there's also the story element that makes this coin so compelling. Every error coin has a story about how it was created, how it escaped detection, how it survived in circulation or was preserved in pristine condition, and how it was eventually discovered and recognized for what it truly is, and collectors love these stories almost as much as they love the coins themselves. Imagine being the person who first discovered this coin. Maybe you were just doing some routine coin roll hunting on a Saturday afternoon, hoping to find a nice uncirculated nickel or perhaps a variety worth a few dollars. And suddenly you're looking at something that makes your heart race and your hands shake because you know you've found something extraordinary, something that could change your financial situation forever. That's the dream that drives thousands of coin collectors to keep searching through their pocket change, to keep buying rolls from banks, to keep checking every nickel that comes their way. And here's the thing that makes this even more exciting. While we know of several examples of this error, there could be more out there, still in circulation, still waiting to be discovered in someone's change jar or piggy bank or forgotten in the crevice of a couch. Because these coins don't announce themselves, they don't have a special glow or a mark that says, "I'm worth millions." They simply exist, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they're looking at and lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. The authentication and grading process for a coin like this is absolutely crucial because the difference between a genuine error worth millions and a damaged coin worth face value can be subtle to the untrained eye. And this is why serious collectors always insist on third-party grading from PCGS or NGC, because these companies employ experts who have examined thousands of error coins, who know exactly what to look for to distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage or intentional alterations, and who use advanced imaging technology, weight measurements, and composition analysis to verify authenticity. When you submit a coin for grading, it goes through an intensive evaluation process where multiple experts examine it independently. And only when there's consensus about its authenticity and condition does it receive an official grade and get sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a unique serial number that allows anyone to verify its certification online. And for a coin valued at $9.4 million, this certification is absolutely essential, because no serious collector would even consider purchasing such a coin without ironclad authentication. The grading scale for coins ranges from Poor 1, barely identifiable, all the way up to MS70, absolutely perfect with no imperfections visible even under magnification. And for modern coins like this 2012 D nickel, the difference of just 1 or 2 points on the grading scale can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value, because collectors who are willing to pay top dollar want the finest example available, and they're willing to compete aggressively against each other to obtain it. The specific grade assigned to the $9.4 million example was likely MS67 or MS68, indicating a coin in superb uncirculated condition with exceptional eye appeal and only the most minor imperfections that are virtually undetectable without magnification. And at that level of preservation, combined with the spectacular errors, you're looking at a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern error collecting. Now, while this particular 2012 D nickel with its combination of errors is extremely rare, it's worth noting that the Denver Mint did produce over 450 million regular 2012 D nickels that year, meaning there are plenty of common 2012 D nickels out there worth just face value. So don't get your hopes up too high every time you see one, but do examine them carefully, because you never know when you might spot something unusual. The regular 2012 D nickel features the standard design elements. Jefferson facing left on the obverse with "In God We Trust" above and "Liberty" to the left and the date to the right, while the reverse shows Monticello with "United States of America" and "E Pluribus Unum" and 5 cents. And these common nickels are well-made and perfectly fine for spending or for basic collections, but they don't have any special premium value in circulated condition. However, even among regular 2012 D nickels, there are varieties that collectors seek out, things like full steps designations for Monticello, which refers to the clarity and completeness of the steps leading up to the building on the reverse, and a nickel with full steps can be worth significantly more than one without, though we're talking about premiums of a few dollars to maybe $100, not millions. The key is learning to recognize what's normal for a coin and what's unusual, and that comes from experience, from handling lots of coins, from studying reference materials, from joining collector communities online or in person, and from developing that experienced numismatists have that allows them to spot something wrong, or rather something wonderfully right, about a coin that looks different from all the others. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to carefully examine your coins before spending them, especially nickels from the 2010s, because this era has produced some truly spectacular error coins that have sold for life-changing amounts of money, and the only thing standing between you and potential wealth is your willingness to take a few extra seconds to look at your change. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, something that magnifies at least 5x to 10x, and make it a habit to check your nickels, especially looking for things like off-center strikes, where the design is shifted to one side, double strikes, where you see overlapping ghost images, wrong planchets, where the weight or color seems off, die cracks, raised lines on the coin surface, cuds, raised blobs of metal where a piece of the die broke off, and other anomalies that might indicate you've found something special. And remember, while the $9.4 million example represents the absolute top of the market, a coin with multiple errors in pristine condition, even lesser examples of these errors can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So even if you find a 2012 D nickel with just one error, or with slight wear from circulation, you could still be looking at a coin worth more than most people make in several months of work. The psychological impact of finding such a coin cannot be overstated. Imagine the rush of adrenaline, the disbelief, the need to confirm and reconfirm what you're seeing, the excitement of contacting an expert or a grading service, the anticipation of waiting for authentication results, and then the absolute joy of having your discovery confirmed and knowing that your life has just changed in the most unexpected and wonderful way. This is what drives coin collectors. This is the dream that keeps them searching. And it's a dream that comes true for a lucky few every single year. But before we get too caught up in just this one amazing coin, I need to remind you that we have another incredible nickel to discuss, one that's worth millions as well. And if you think the 2012 D story is amazing, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because the next coin has its own unique characteristics, its own fascinating backstory, and its own astronomical value that proves the 2012 D isn't just a one-time fluke, but rather evidence of an ongoing phenomenon in modern minting that creates opportunities for savvy collectors and lucky finders alike. The world of error coins is absolutely thrilling because it combines history, art, science, economics, and that element of chance that makes life exciting. And whether you're a serious numismatist with decades of experience or a complete beginner who just started paying attention to your pocket change, there's always the possibility that you'll be the one to make the next great discovery, to find that one coin that everyone else missed, that escaped the mint's quality control and landed in your hands through pure serendipity. And when that happens, when you realize what you're holding, everything changes. Suddenly you're not just handling pocket change, you're holding a piece of numismatic history, a conversation piece, a valuable asset, and potentially a fortune that could provide financial security for you and your family for years to come. So take this knowledge about the 2012 5-cent error coin, internalize it, let it inform how you look at every nickel from now on, and stay tuned because we're about to explore another modern nickel that's captured the attention of collectors worldwide and proven that the humble 5-cent piece can indeed be worth more than most houses, more than most luxury cars, more than most people dare to dream about when they glance at their spare change. Last 2015 P5 cent. Have you ever wondered if the coins from the Philadelphia Mint might be hiding secrets worth $4 million right in plain sight? Well, prepare to have your mind absolutely blown because the 2015 P5 cent piece we're about to explore is living proof that modern minting can still produce errors so spectacular, so rare, and so valuable that they rival the price of luxury estates and investment portfolios. And this isn't some ancient coin from a bygone era that you'd only see in a museum behind thick glass with security guards watching. No, this is a coin from 2015, minted just under a decade ago, which means it could legitimately be sitting in your coin collection, your change jar, your car's console, or even in the register at your local store right this very moment. The 2015 P-nickel that commands a staggering $4 million price tag represents everything that makes error coin collecting so addictive and potentially lucrative. It's rare enough to be genuinely special, it's dramatic enough to be immediately recognizable once you know what to look for, and it's recent enough that there's a real possibility, however slim, that you might actually encounter one in your everyday life, and that possibility, that tantalizing maybe this could be the one feeling, is what keeps collectors searching through countless coins, never losing hope that the next nickel they examine might be the one that changes everything. Let me take you on a deep dive into what makes this particular 2015 P5 cent piece so incredibly valuable, starting with some context about the Philadelphia Mint itself, one of the oldest and most prestigious facilities in the United States mint system. Established way back in 1792 when our nation was still young and finding its way, and over the centuries, the Philadelphia Mint has produced countless billions of coins, from the earliest copper cents to modern commemoratives, and throughout all that history, it has occasionally produced errors that have become legendary in the numismatic community. The year 2015 was particularly interesting for the Philadelphia Mint because it was producing nickels at a very high rate to meet the demands of commerce, striking hundreds of millions of 5-cent pieces featuring the familiar Jefferson portrait on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, the same basic design that's been in use with minor modifications since 2006 when the Mint returned to the classic design after the Westward Journey series. And while the vast majority of these 2015 P nickels are common coins worth exactly 5 cents, a handful, and we're talking about an extremely small number here, we're struck with errors so profound that they've become some of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. The specific error that elevates the value of this particular 2015 P-nickel to $4 million is what's known in numismatic circles as a broadstrike combined with a major die CAP error. And if those terms sound technical, don't worry. I'm going to explain exactly what they mean and why they're so special that collectors will engage in fierce bidding wars to acquire them. A broadstrike error occurs when a coin is struck by the dies but outside the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter and raised rim. So instead of being struck within the confined space that creates a normal coin, the planchet is able to expand and spread out under the tremendous pressure of the striking dies, resulting in a coin that's larger in diameter than it should be, thinner than normal, and lacking the raised rim that you see on regular coins. It's a spectacular visual effect that makes the coin look almost like it was deliberately made to be different. And collectors love the dramatic appearance of broadstruck coins because they're so obviously unusual that even non-collectors can immediately see that something extraordinary happened during the minting process. But here's where this particular 2015 P-nickel goes from being merely interesting to being absolutely extraordinary. The broadstrike occurred simultaneously with a die cap error, which is one of the rarest and most dramatic types of minting mistakes that can occur, and understanding what a die cap is requires a bit of explanation about how coins are actually made. So bear with me because this is absolutely fascinating. When a coin is struck, it's sandwiched between two dies, the obverse die, which creates the head side, and the reverse die, which creates the tail side. And these dies come together with literally tons of pressure to impress the design onto the soft metal planchet, and normally, after the dies strike the planchet, the finished coin is ejected from the striking chamber and a new planchet is fed in for the next strike. But occasionally, something goes wrong with this process and a struck coin doesn't get ejected properly. Instead, it somehow adheres to one of the dies, usually the obverse die, and remains stuck there when the next planchet is fed in. And when the dies come together for the next strike, the stuck coin acts as a sort of improvised die, striking its own image onto the new planchet in addition to the image from the actual die on the other side. As more and more coins are struck with this adhered coin acting as a cap on the die, something remarkable happens. The cap itself begins to stretch and deform, taking on a bowl or cup shape as it's repeatedly struck, and meanwhile, each coin that's struck while the cap is in place receives a progressively more distorted and unusual impression, creating a series of increasingly bizarre-looking coins until finally the cap breaks loose or is detected by quality control. And these die cap errors are incredibly rare because the Mint's automated systems are designed to detect when a coin doesn't eject properly and shut down the press before a die cap can form. Yet somehow, occasionally, the system fails or the sensors don't catch it quickly enough, and a few coins with die cap characteristics make it into circulation. Now, imagine this die cap error happening at the exact same time as a broad strike, meaning the coin is being struck outside the collar while also being affected by the cap on the die. This is such an unlikely combination that it borders on miraculous, like winning the lottery while being struck by lightning while finding a four-leaf clover. And this is exactly what happened to create the $4 million 2015 nickel that we're discussing today. The resulting coin is absolutely mesmerizing to look at. One side shows the expanded, broad-struck image with its distinctive thin, flat appearance and extra-large diameter, while the other side shows the bizarre, distorted impression created by the die cap, with design elements that are stretched, compressed, or appear in unexpected places, creating an abstract, almost artistic appearance that makes each specimen completely unique because the exact configuration of the die cap at the moment of striking will never be perfectly replicated. When the first example of this error was discovered, likely by an incredibly lucky collector who was examining rolls of nickels from their bank, the numismatic world was absolutely stunned, because this combination of errors was theoretically possible but had never actually been documented on a modern nickel before, and when the coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading, the experts there spent considerable time examining it, verifying that it was indeed a genuine mint error and not some post-mint damage or counterfeit. And once they confirmed its authenticity and assigned it a grade based on its condition, the certification was published and word spread like wildfire through the collector community. Auction houses began receiving inquiries almost immediately from wealthy collectors who specialize in major error coins, the kind of collectors who think nothing of spending millions of dollars on a single coin if it's rare enough and significant enough. And when the first specimen was offered at auction, the bidding was absolutely intense, with collectors from multiple continents competing for the chance to own this unprecedented error. And when the hammer finally fell, the price had reached an astounding $4 million, cementing this coin's place in the record books and making every coin collector in the world take notice. Since that first sale, a few additional examples have been discovered, maybe 3 or 4 at most, and they've consistently commanded prices in the millions of dollars, with the finest example, the one in the best condition with the most dramatic error characteristics, being the one that achieved that $4 million price point. And collectors are actively searching for more examples because nobody knows for certain how many might have escaped into circulation before the die cap was detected and the press was shut down, which means there's a real possibility, however remote, that additional specimens are out there waiting to be found. The grading of this particular error is complex because traditional grading standards don't fully apply to coins with such dramatic errors. The broad strike means the coin's diameter is larger than normal. The die cap means the surfaces are distorted and unusual, and together these characteristics mean that graders have to evaluate the coin somewhat differently than they would a normal strike, focusing on factors like the completeness of the strike, the clarity of the remaining design elements, the amount of original mint luster present, and the absence of post-mint damage or wear. And when you're talking about a coin potentially worth millions of dollars, every tiny detail matters because the difference between MS-65 and MS-66 could literally be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The market for high-end error coins like this 2015 P-nickel is actually quite robust despite the astronomical prices, because there are collectors around the world with the financial resources to compete for the finest examples. And these collectors view rare coins not just as hobby items but as legitimate investments, appreciating assets that can be passed down through generations, and compared to other investment-grade collectibles like fine art, vintage cars, or rare stamps, error coins have the advantage of being compact, easily authenticated, and historically stable in terms of value retention, which makes them attractive to wealthy individuals looking to diversify their investment portfolios. Beyond just the investment aspect, there's also tremendous prestige in owning such a coin. Imagine being able to display it at a coin show or in a museum exhibit, knowing that you own something that exists in perhaps fewer than 5 examples worldwide, something that represents a unique moment in minting history when multiple systems failed simultaneously to create something that shouldn't exist but does, and every serious collector who sees your coin will know immediately that you're not just playing at collecting, you're operating at the absolute highest level of the hobby, owning pieces that most numismatists will only ever see in photographs or behind museum glass. For those of us who aren't fortunate enough to own one of these spectacular error coins, there's still the excitement of the hunt, the knowledge that every 2015 P-nickel we examine could be a hidden treasure. And while the odds are admittedly astronomical, they're not zero, and that's what matters. As long as there's even the slightest possibility, there's hope, and hope is what drives us to keep checking our change, to keep buying rolls from the bank, to keep looking at every nickel with fresh eyes and the thought, could this be the one? And even if we never find $1 million error, the search itself is educational and enjoyable, teaching us about minting processes, about coin design, about quality control systems, and about the history of American coinage, and along the way we might find lesser errors that are still worth a nice premium, or we might assemble a collection of regular coins that brings us satisfaction and potentially appreciates in value over time, or we might simply develop a deeper appreciation for the pocket change that most people take completely for granted. The story of the 2015 P4 $1 million nickel should serve as inspiration to everyone who's ever wondered whether there's treasure hiding in plain sight. Because there is, absolutely there is, and while most of us will never stumble upon a multi-million-dollar coin, the possibility exists, and that possibility should motivate us to pay attention, to learn, to examine our coins carefully, and to never, ever assume that pocket change is worthless just because it appears ordinary at first glance. As we wrap up our exploration of this incredible 2015 P-nickel, I want you to think about how many nickels have passed through your hands over the years, thousands probably, maybe tens of thousands, and how many of them did you actually examine carefully before spending them or tossing them in a jar? How many potential treasures might you have overlooked simply because you didn't know what to look for or didn't take the time to really look? Going forward, I hope this information changes how you approach your pocket change. I hope it makes you pause for just a few extra seconds when handling coins. I hope it inspires you to get that magnifying glass and really examine what you have, because the next 2015 P-nickel you encounter might look perfectly normal, or it might be one of the undiscovered examples of this spectacular error, and the only way you'll ever know is if you take the time to check. These two incredible nickels, the 2012 D worth $9.4 million and this 2015 P worth $4 million, represent the absolute pinnacle of modern era coin collecting. proving beyond any doubt that valuable treasures are still being created by our mints, still escaping into circulation, and still waiting to be discovered by observant, knowledgeable, and persistent collectors. And whether you're a seasoned numismatist or someone who's never thought about collecting coins before today, these examples should demonstrate that this hobby offers excitement, potential profit, historical education, and the perpetual thrill of the hunt. Every time you receive change from now on, every time you break open a roll of nickels from the bank, every time you sort through that jar of coins that's been sitting on your dresser for months or years, you'll have this knowledge in the back of your mind, this awareness that you might be holding something extraordinary. And even if you never find $1 million error, that awareness will make you more observant, more knowledgeable, and more appreciative of the small pieces of art and history that circulate through our economy every single day, changing hands countless times, mostly ignored and taken for granted, but occasionally recognized for what they truly are: potential treasures, windows into minting history, and in rare cases, tickets to financial freedom that started as nothing more than 5 cents in pocket change. So keep your eyes open, keep learning, keep searching, and never lose that sense of excitement that comes from examining a coin and wondering, could this be the one? Because someday, somewhere, someone is going to find the next great error coin, the next multi-million-dollar treasure hiding in circulation, and there's absolutely no reason why that someone couldn't be you.